All right, so let's reharmonize our song. Some of the techniques that we're gonna use in reharmonizing Killing Me Softly are things like interpolation, secondary dominance, borrowing from minor, which we already have in the original version, line cliches, sub-fives, just to name a few. And one of the first things we're gonna do right off the bat is use that interpolation technique, which is basically the insertion of some chords to kind of create more of a tension, release effect. And one of the things we have right off the bat here is a G7 to a C. We have a 5-to-1. So it's just kind of maybe worth noting that anytime you see a 5 chord in any context, you can always basically see the 2 that precedes it as an extension or a substitute, if you will. So anywhere you have a 5 chord, you can almost always, even if it's not there, put a 2 chord before it. And that's what we're gonna do right here. We're basically just gonna interpolate the 2 before this G7. And I want you guys to ignore the first measure as I do this for right now. You may be saying the 2 is already there. I know, just pretend it's not there for 1 second and bear with me and you'll see why in a minute. So what I'm gonna do is move this G7 over. Let's do that. Where are you, G7? And make it the third measure, the third beat, excuse me, of that measure. And now what I'll do is interpolate right before it, its 2 chord, which is D minor 7, all right? So now, while I'm doing this, always, I'm considering my target, all right? The whole time I was going through that process, as should you, I'm considering where do I want to go. I want to get to C by way of its 5 chord, by way of the 2 of that 5, and we're just gonna kind of keep working our way backwards and sort of reverse engineering our reharmonization. All right, so now that I've done that, I've got this whole measure at the beginning of the song to mess with. Now, what can I do with this measure to introduce some more reharmonization? And one thing I can do is consider this D minor 7 as a new target, a sort of intermediary target, a stepping stone target, if you will, to our actual home chord or our real target. And so what I'll do with this D minor 7 is before it, on the third beat of the first measure, I'll put its 5 chord. Now if I go over to the map over here in the subdominant region, because that's where the 2 chord resides, I can see that its 5 chord, right up here, is A7, flat 9. So now basically what we'll do is the same concept that we applied to the G7 and put the 2 chord before that, we'll apply to the A7 flat 9 and put its 2 before that. And that has to come from the inside circle because D minor 7, we're technically in a minor key right now. So I want this minor 2 of 2 to the 5 of 2 to the 2, 5, 1. So now we have this. So there we have right off the bat that interpolation technique we mentioned earlier. And like I said before, always considering the target all the while when you're doing so. And along the way, maybe creating new targets to create yet even more reharmonization or interpolation. Now it's really also, besides that, it's really important to note that you really have to consider the melody when you're doing this, just to make sure that none of the chords we've added here clash with it. And you can always do that with the keyboard down here. I can even turn the scales on, the chord scales on, so I can see each chord's chord scale. And if I click on the chord down here on the keyboard, I'll see all the notes in that chord scale that chord came from, and I can compare and contrast that with the notes in the melody, just to make sure. All right, so now let's move forward and use the same concept again in the next 2 measures. So now what we'll do is we'll target this F major 7 over here, and we'll interpolate into that, or before that, a 2-5. So in considering the F as my new target, the best way to target it is with its 5 chord. I'll put that right here. So over here in the map, in the subdominant region, the 5 of 4, boom. And I'll put the 2 of that 5 before that. So we're gonna completely get rid of our previous target. And you may ask, well, everything we did in the 2 measures before that was predicated on arriving to that target. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter. Not in this case. we're just about creating tension that will resolve. And whether I resolve it here on the downbeat of measure 3, or whether I resolve it down here on the measure or the downbeat of measure 4, ultimately is up to preference and really is subjective and almost doesn't matter. But all the while considering the target and the melody while we're doing this and making sure that none of these chords that we're adding or editing clash with the melody. So to create the 2 of 4 in this measure, what I need is a G minor 7. So let's change that. There we go. All right. So now we have go there. There we go. Really cool, right? So if I look at the next couple chords, what I see is an F major 7 and a D minor 7. And if I could somehow connect those 2 notes with E, I'd have the makings of a line. So let's do that. Let's turn this F major 7 on the 3rd beat of its measure into an F major 7 in 3rd inversion. Click, and boom. So now I have F major 7 over E, and that'll take me to the D minor 7 that is on the downbeat of the next measure. So now that we're on this D minor 7 by way of this line, F, E, D, I could add another note to the line on the 3rd beat of this measure if I just go with D minor 7 over C, or a D minor 7 in 3rd inversion. So let's do that. Let's go here, 3rd inversion, make the 7th the bass, and now I have a really kind of cool line developing. I have 4 notes, and I can extend that even further. If I look at this next chord, this G7, it has a B in it. So if I wanted to make this a G7 in 1st inversion, I'd have an even more extended version. Where is that? Boom. Of our line. So B da da da. Now I have a 5-note little line cliche in the bass, which is pretty cool. All I had to do was add some slash chords. All right, so now let's fast forward a few bars, or 1 bar, and look at this A minor 7 that we're ultimately arriving on. So now we have this line in the bass that we've created with the reharm. And we could very well leave these next 2 chords alone, but we won't, because that's not the point of the video. The point is to see what we can do with some of these reharm techniques. So what we're gonna do to this A minor 7 is exactly what we did in the first line, and use some interpolation and consider it our target. And so let's recap again. The best way to consider any chord as a target or set it up as a target is to play its 5 chords. So I'll find A minor 7's 5 chord right here, down here in the tonic region of the map. And then we're gonna do something pretty cool with this chord, this G7 over B. If I look for E7 flat 9's 2 chord, I'll see that it's B minor 7 flat 5, which is perfect for 2 reasons. A, the bass is B and it doesn't interfere with our line, and B, the notes of a 7 chord of any key and the notes of a 5 chord of any key are essentially the same. In other words, if I take G7, I have G, B, D, F. But if I take B minor 7 flat 5 or B half diminished 7, I have the B, the D, and the F also, just with the addition of the A. So they're essentially 2 sides of the same coin. So there's no worry about it clashing with the melody even with regard to that also. So let's do that. Let's make our B minor 7 flat 5 show up here instead of that original chord. And now we have a nice cohesive line still, and we've interpolated some more chords here to create A minor 7 as more of a target. All right, so now we've arrived at our A minor 7 by creating a target out of it. And now we got 2 measures of nothing. So let's do something with that before we get over here to this D minor 7. So let's create another line. Let's go A minor 7. We'll do the same thing to A minor 7 that we did to D minor 7 a couple measures before. We'll go A minor 7 in 3rd inversion. That'll give us, we've already got a line, 2 notes, that's it, that's all we need. But we can take it a little further. Let's go A minor 7, or rather, how about A minor 6? So we need the melodic minor chord scale. And we'll put that in 3rd inversion also to make F sharp the bass. And there we go. So now we got another line. D, da, da. Now what we're gonna do, instead of just leaving the rest of that measure blank and then going to D minor 7, is consider D minor 7 as our next target and put before it, it's sub 5. So that's another technique that we're gonna talk about right now. So we've got our interpolation, we've got our line cliches, our bass line cliches, and now a sub 5. So before we talked about, we just did it a second ago with regards to A minor 7, we used its 5 as a means of targeting it. So now we're gonna use D minor 7's sub 5, all right? So as we've talked about in previous videos, the correlation between a 5 chord and its sub 5 is strong because they both share the same tritone. So they're essentially interchangeable, much like the 7 of a chord is interchangeable with its 5. So is a sub 5 sort of, because they have so much in common. So I could very well put an A7 right here. I could put D minor 7's 5 there, but we're gonna use a different technique. We're gonna use the sub 5. So if I find D minor 7 in our map, its 5 chord is right there, the A7 flat 9. Anytime you're looking at the map, you wanna find a 5 chord sub 5, it's directly across on the other side of that circle. So what we're looking for here is E flat 7. Another shortcut you can use is the sub 5 of the chord. The sub 5 of any 5 chord is always a half step. Dominant 7 chord, a half step up from the 1. So for example, C's sub 5 would be D flat 7, all right? D minor 7 sub 5 is E flat 7, and that's what we want right here. Let me re-edit this real quick. E flat 7. So there's the uses of a sub 5, and the cadence detector is even picking up on that too. So instead of a solid arrow indicating an authentic cadence 5-1, we have this dotted arrow, which implies that authentic sort of quality of tension release, but isn't exactly a 5-1 authentic cadence. So we have a sub 5-1 by way of this line cliche that we've created. All right, so we'll close out today's video there. Come back next time when we finish the A section, talk about some secondary dominants and borrowing from minor, as well as obliterating some key changes that were established before also. So hopefully that was helpful. As always, please click on that like and subscribe button, smash on the notification bell. Thanks for watching.